This is Sticking Gray Bomb, Refined Taste for Idiots. I'm Mace,
I'm X. What up?
and microphone wrist check. I'm wearing my tag here, Halloween style, on the
Old
NATO,
school.
black and orange.
Where's that NATO from, Mace?
Blue Shark.
Why'd you give
And
Blue Shark a little love?
I actually think this was a gift from Papa Mex. I
Oh,
didn't
because I
use
was gonna
those.
say it looked familiar.
Yeah,
Blue
try
Shark,
not to
great
get that
straps.
the
Yeah,
lighting glare there.
not sponsored, but Blue Shark has some great straps. Great variety, great price point, great quality. I mean, I think they're
Really
pretty good.
comfortable. Really
Yep.
comfortable. Absolutely. How about you, Papa?
So I'm going with, so I have a couple of mechanical pieces that I wanted to talk today. So I'm going with my old school penny. Probably my first luxury watch, one or two of my first luxury watches, either this or a Longines kind of flagship chrono would have been the other one. That is no longer part of the collection, but I love this guy. Kind of custom ostrich strap on this guy. I love it. Old school again, probably been in my collection for more than 15 years. So definitely the old movement, manual wine, probably Edda, maybe something else. But at the end of the day, it's a, very reliable watch, on brand, on point, and it's always nice to wear it.
Awesome. So, yeah, today the topic of our conversation is going to be auction fails. Or I should say auction experience. For me, I've got an auction fail. But I think before we get started, I think Max has a couple of questions for me.
Yeah, before we get started, I think we started on this trend, and I think it's good. It's a good way for you guys to get to know us a little better. And Mace did me the honors last time, and I also want to start with a bit of a layup. But first question is going to be Safari Mace or Gray Bomb?
It's got to be Gray Bomb.
All the time. Okay.
Yeah,
So
and
question,
maybe,
Mace.
sorry, at some point, I don't know, maybe we should set a goal. If one of our videos hits a certain number of views, we'll go into the Gray Bomb origin story. I don't know
It's
that there's a
not a
whole
bad
lot to
idea,
tell,
and maybe
but
and maybe we could even go full Gray Bomb for that video. This is more of an open-ended question, okay? But so feel free to riff. But what do you think Terry Hatcher is doing today?
And by the way, they're real and they're spectacular.
I mean, maybe staring at some posters in her gym of young Mace, but I don't think he's getting a lot of TV spots or a lot of movie spots.
Yeah, she's not working a lot. She's probably, as they say, right, idle hands are devil's workshop. So I think that she's probably reminiscing of her best moments with Mace, circa
Yeah, it could
1967.
be.
Next question. Who do you think is a more formidable Arnold bad guy, Cohagen or the Richard Dawson character in Running Man?
You know, Cohagen has the power, right? They both have henchmen, right? In different
Well, okay, Cohagen has
capacities.
Richter.
Yeah, but I always felt like Cohagen didn't really get involved. Not a lot of face-to-face time with Arnold. Whereas Killian was really, really involved in his face. And to be fair, when he was in his face, Arnold was shackled to this primitive skeletonized bobsled. But I think there's a lot of elements of Killian whipping up the crowd and kind of just having wave after wave of gladiators being sent out into the zone. And I just love the fact that Richard Dawson was in that movie. I mean, just playing off the Family Feud aspect of it, the game show. It was perfect casting in that movie. I'm going Richard Dawson / Killian all day long.
I love that. Well done, Mace. Super Bowl 25 or Super Bowl 42?
I gotta go 42. I just think it was so unexpected. The team kind of came out of nowhere. It was kind of they got hot at the right time, right? I believe if I'm the last game of the year was a high scoring loss to the Pats.
Right. They almost beat that. That was a Pats undefeated run, and they almost beat
Exactly.
them there. Right.
And then there was some smugness in some of the media interviews with Tom Brady. Um, I forget which Giant said, we're going to hold them to, I think it was 21 points, what they said. And Tom Brady was like, we're only going to score 21. And of course, the Giants held them to 17, right? I believe it was 21-17 that
we're only going to score 17 points. Okay.
That game. It was really satisfying, actually. Really satisfying.
I feel that. Yeah. Who says that fans don't take this stuff personally?
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Even 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and the Giants are doing this year with some smoke and mirrors at the midway point of the season, and
this is not a Super Bowl contender. Right?
No, not at all.
That.
Not at all. This is a bag of tricks, and and give it to them, the enthusiasm and the heart they're playing with, but they're going to run out of gas, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, look, it's fun to watch as a fan, but I agree. Can't compare this to those Coughlin teams for sure with Eli Manning at quarterback. So who is the bigger weasel manager, Mace? Multi-million-dollar man, Ted DiBiase, or Jimmy Mouth of the South Hart?
It's funny. I don't really think of $1 Million Man as a manager. But I guess that is true.
He had a stable of peeps.
Yeah, I mean, biggest weasel of those two, I would have to say, Jimmy Hart. I mean, he had the megaphone, the '80s like wall of hair,
lots of hairspray,
and the oversized jackets, and he probably weighed 115 pounds. He's much bigger weasel.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mace.
Was that 5?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like I could do that all day long.
Right in your wheelhouse. That's batting practice, Mace.
Those soft toss. All right, so we're going to head back to our main topic, that of participating in auctions, and specifically those put on by auction houses, not the eBay style, where you're afforded some protections and you can buy things outright. A seller might be just selling one particular item and giving you kind of a due date or an ending bid time. This is really, sorry?
Not a happy ending.
Thanks for that. And for the auction house, they're selling maybe 100 watches, couple hundred watches, and it's one after another. And you can win, you can certainly lose out to another participant, or the lot might not hit the reserve price, and that's kind of the minimum that the auction house will accept for that item. So the two of us have participated in these types of auctions before. Personally, I've participated in purchasing some artwork. I've and old maps. I don't know why that slipped my mind, and with those, the pictures are pretty accurate representations of the item. Until recently, kind of the beginning of the summer, I had never purchased anything mechanical through an auction. And I did so. I bought 3 watches, and I'll get to that in a bit, but I wanted to turn it over to Max for his insight.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I have a rule now after participating in some watch auctions, right, where I think you have to be very engaged with the auction house to ask for clarification, right? Particularly an auction house that you don't have history transacting with. So I bought a couple of pieces from relatively well-known auction houses. Art Curial is not the most famous, right? It's not a Christie's or a Phillips, but it's relatively well known. Antiquorum, right? And if you saw a previous video, you'll know that we're kind of we're previewing their upcoming Geneva auction. And what I've learned, a couple of different things. So I'll take you through just a couple of pieces that I've acquired. Again, nothing dramatic. I mean, these are all things probably within the $2,000 to $6,000 price range. They're all vintage. Because I think with vintage watches, because I think Mace brings up a good point in terms of the mechanical nature of watches, right? Where to a certain extent you have to take the word of the person selling it, right? And we always say, you buy a watch from a dealer, you don't buy the watch, right? You buy the dealer. But I think with vintage watches, especially because so much stuff can be happening behind the case back, right? And I've learned also that it's not just behind the case back, right? So I bought this. This is the first watch I bought at auction. Okay, it's a late 1940s IWC. Nice watch, right? Really nice lugs. Kind of you sense that kind of theme with me, right? It's a 45 mil, so it's a nice presence, rose gold. Small seconds timepiece. But again, the pictures showed off the lugs, of course. Showed off the face, but there's a crack, a pretty significant crack in the side of the case. Okay, I don't think it compromises anything. The watch still keeps good time. I don't know if you can see that there. Maybe I'll share a picture in post-production here. But the condition is not what you'd think of if you just look at the pictures, right? So again, I mean, for $2,000, $2,500 watch, okay, is it crazy? Am I upset? No, but I still wear the watch, and as we talked about in a previous conversation, do I care about getting it bumped or scratched a little bit? Well, much less so now. It has a giant crack in the side of the case. But it's something, again, from a condition standpoint that we have to be mindful of. Okay. This is a story. So the first watch I purchased from Antiquorum. And Antiquorum, again, very reputable auction house, seller of watches in particular. So this is a Patek. This is a slightly newer watch, right? I'd say probably from the early 50s or maybe later 50s. The cool thing about this watch, again, I'll send a picture so you can zoom in, but it's a Tiffany stamped watch, smaller, 33 mils, has a kind of disco volante pattern. So, I mean, the good news is the watch came 100% as advertised, and it keeps time, it works, but they wouldn't ship it with the strap, citing regulations that Switzerland has about shipping exotic skins, okay, or exporting exotic skins, because they don't want to seem like they're perpetuating, the slaughter of crocodiles or ostriches or things like this. And I was actually a little cross. I kind of went back and forth arguing with them a little bit because I said, hey, yes, I'm buying a watch, but I'm also buying a watch with a strap. If I have to go and buy a strap, that could be another $60 or $70 to put on this watch. That's not covered in the price of the auction. And so, of course, they referred back to their fine print and basically said, I'm sorry, sir, we're not shipping this watch with the strap. What do you want to do? And I think that for me, that illustrates the fact that these guys don't care about customer service. Mace, you mentioned eBay. I think eBay's success has been in kind of bringing the store experience, that quick transaction, the visibility around shipping, the customer service, the ability to return, the ability to make a complaint. That's brought it into the auction world, right, where it's made it safe for a lot of people. Antiquorum couldn't care less if you don't like what's happened. So what? So you buy a watch here and there, you may consign a watch here and there. They're not beholden to you, right? So I think that's another thing to be mindful of. Okay. But I would say all in all, I've had good experiences with Antiquorum. I bought another watch, the vintage Patek that you guys have seen, here, this watch. which was purchased just, I would say, earlier this year, probably in March or May of this year. I had conditioned myself where it wasn't going to be shipped with a strap. But at the end of the day, it was a watch in as advertised condition, working very well, and it basically just put a strap on it and you can wear it. So I think the big takeaway, I would say two big takeaways that I've learned throughout this process. One is make sure you're buying from a reputable auction house, and you may incur higher overall costs because of that. But you won't have to worry about bringing it to a watchmaker for an expensive repair afterwards. And the second piece is don't be afraid to ask for additional pictures or ask questions around condition, service history, provenance, etc. I think that's a critical part of the process. All these auctions come out with their listings, 3 to 4 weeks in advance at least. That's your time to kind of look through the catalog and ask those questions. So, be mindful. This is not a spur of the moment, hey, let me go see what's on eBay process. It takes time, it takes some research, but you could really make this a good way to add some unique pieces to your collection.
Right. Yeah, so it's fair to say that I made some spur of the moment choices, selections. Did not buy from the most reputable auction house in the world, and pay the price, and we'll continue to pay the price for that. So when rent is due, I'll have to pay the man.
First of the month.
First of the month. So this summer I bought 3 watches from 2 different auction houses, and the first, actually, it's really the second auction house that I purchased from, Finarte, located in Italy, I believe Rome. I bought the 1960s Zodiac Seawolf that I've talked about ad nauseum, I think, with the wind-up recap, and but worked fine.
Nice looking watch.
It's a nice great looking watch. It's in good condition. The gilt on the bezel is great. The dial is sharp. Indices are sharp. Not in love with the Tropic strap, but that's me and Tropic straps. Just don't love it. But after the weekend at wind up, my son wearing it, and came back home, and it crapped out. And that's kind of what happens, right? I didn't get it serviced after I brought it, got it from the auction, and so that's not a problem. The easy fix, relatively, cost of doing business, I think, with an auction. The other auction was Collectible Auctions. They're based out of Florida. They run watch auctions pretty frequently.
Where did you find them?
Sorry?
Where did you find them?
Oh, got them either through Invaluable or Live Auctioneers, right? And I'm also realizing that you pay a premium using those services as opposed to using their own platform, if they have one, right? Antiquorum has their own platform. You can also bid through these other services, but you'll pay probably an extra 5%.
Exactly.
So another auction tip, wherever possible, go direct to the source.
Excellent.
So Collectible Auctions, I bought 2 watches. Really, I was looking for an Omega Flightmaster, or it had been kind of that 5 to 10 watches that I was on the lookout for. So the Flightmaster was one of them. That had one come to auction. Wasn't necessarily in the best shape, even by picture standards. But I bid on it. The estimate, something like $1,500 to $3,000. I bid $2,400, and I will say I wasn't planning to go above $2,000, but sometimes you get caught up in the moment. Once I made a couple of bids, I wanted it, and I won the bid. And because of where I went, the service that I used to bid, the commission was 30% on top of the. I looked at it when I first got it. It's cool. Didn't necessarily wind it up right away, but when I did wind it up, the time started working. It was working, but the chronograph was not working, and the dial at the 6 o'clock marker. And I'll share a picture when we put this into production. The hand is pointing in the same spot as it was in the auction picture, right? So the chronograph wasn't working then, wasn't working when I got it. And, I reached out to, and I should say, not only did the chronograph not work, the watch stopped working shortly there. I mean, it ran for maybe half an hour and then it stopped working altogether. I could not get the time to work. Chronograph was shot. It was dirty as hell. And I should say that the name of the auction was Vintage Watches, Watchmaker's Estate, right? So with a title like that, you think that you're going to get a good quality watch, that it's been taken care of, been fixed. What really happened was this guy probably passed away, didn't get to all these watches to fix, didn't clean them, and I come to find out there's some really shady history behind the watch that I purchased. I don't want to make it sound like it was stolen and kind of resurfaced. It's just repair history. It's really kind of crappy. And I reached out to them and was like, look, this thing didn't work. And I got to, the guy's on the phone. He's telling me I got to check with my boss. The terms of the auction are as is. I'm like, well, that's fine, but your statement about running at the time of cataloging is patently false, right? It's a total misrepresentation of what happened. The chronograph never worked. It's in the same spot as it was in your photo, right? Then, checks his boss, gets back to me, and he writes, look, we're not watch experts. The terms of the auction are clear. There's nothing we can do. We have paid, the estate, to the watches. Right, but you got your commission, and that would put a healthy dent in my repair bill, right? Crickets. Didn't do anything about it. So I'd been researching watchmakers, and there are a couple of gentlemen who were up in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, not particularly close to me, but local business. They've got a 9-month backlog of watches that they're looking to repair. So Mex recommended his guy, John Zangler, in Lynbrook, New York. Happened to be visiting my folks and stopped by there with the Zodiac that I mentioned and the Omega Flightmaster. And the Flightmaster reference is 145.026, just for housekeeping purposes. Got in there, John cracked it open. At first he said, something doesn't look right with this crystal. It looks like it may have been glued, may have been water damage. He's like, he opened it up, doesn't look, he's like, I'm not really sure what's going on in here. But just even to kind of look at it and fix it without parts would cost you about $1,000, right? He called me up yesterday, yesterday, the day before, and he told me, look, it's going to cost $700 for parts. Now, luckily, Omega still has parts available, or makes parts available for their vintage watches, which is really good. And he said, that's excluding a new crystal. So a new Omega crystal is $350. So that puts the repair right at $2,050.
Right, 2 Gs. Yeah.
So that puts my all-in expense at a higher number than I've seen at two reputable vintage watch dealers online
Right.
by about, $650, right? So not that that's a killer. I didn't buy it to sell it. But I also thought, you know, assuming it worked, I got a decent price on it, right? And I just have to laugh, at this whole notion of we're not watch experts. Their Instagram feed, collectible auctions, is all watch pictures.
Oh yeah.
All watch pictures. It's honestly pretty disheartening, right? So lessons learned, right? I'll look on Live Auctioneers or Invaluable, and I'll look for certain watches from time to time if I'm bored. And I'm gonna do a whole lot more homework with the auction house, ask a lot of questions about the watch itself, but also investigate auction history with various auction houses.
Yeah, no, I mean, so that's, I mean, definitely a teaser. I wanted to step back, Mace, to something that you mentioned. Well, not, just in terms of this repair, right? And it's not, we're not talking about modern watches here, where you say, okay,
Right.
it's a $2,000 repair. That would piss just about anybody off, okay? But these are vintage watches, okay? And so the other element, the other question that we need to be asking when we're buying vintage watches is everything original, right? Because there's a big gap in valuation between a watch, even if it's not in the greatest condition, but it's all original, to a watch that has replacement parts, even if they're brand new and original, right? Or when I say original, OEM, right? Yeah, so Mace, you may get an OEM Omega Crystal, right? Which is nice, but guess what? It's not original. And so when it comes time to pass your watch on, whenever it might be, next year, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, collectors will always be the ones to pay the highest value for it, but they're also going to ask, is this all original? Oh, it has a replacement crystal, it has replacement this. You may get dinged for that, right? So it's something to be mindful to ask ahead of time, right? Again, was the watch repaired? Is the case in good condition? Are all the parts original, right? Because I know that some collectors have actually fled certain not references, but certain pieces at auction because it has a replacement dial or a replacement crystal.
Yeah. One thing I neglected to say. So when John called me, he said there were missing pieces. So maybe that's why
But
So
what
what
happened
happened to this
inside that
watch?
watch?
Right. New, replacement crystal, not an Omega crystal. Put in with glue, water damage, missing pieces. So did someone doctor that up just to get it so that the appearance of working for the auction? So they could say it's working at the time of cataloging?
Mason and I have talked about this before. What I've learned, and I didn't know John for as long as I've been buying watches from the secondhand watches from the secondary market. But I'm very happy I know him now, because any car collector is going to have a mechanic on speed dial, right? And so when we buy from auction, when we buy from the secondary market, we need to have a trusted watchmaker on speed dial, right? And so I could tell you that when Mace buys again, when I buy again, I'm going to bring those watches to John and say, John, can you please give me a good bill of health on this? Because that's your time. I think you do have a short window where you would be able to say, this isn't working. You sent this to me. Either something happened in transit or something happened before you package it up, and you have to make right.
Well, at least with this auction house, that was not It was not an option. And we're
Yeah.
not hearing it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
that's fair.
basically dead on arrival, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I think the more reputable ones would definitely say, you know what, that's right, that's on us. You know, if it's
Right.
not working, then we said it was. Even though the terms and conditions are written in such a way that, you know, they really got you. If they
It's a
really
CYA
want to
for
be that
them.
way,
Yeah,
if they want to
that's
hold you
correct.
to it, then the way all those things are written. Even I looked at the anti-forum one because of we were doing the preview. It's in there. Whether or not they stick to it is
Right.
another matter, right? But it's in there.
Well, that's anti-borum.
Right.
Reading
That
T's
is
and
that
C's.
is really boring. Yeah.
But I told you, I mean, look, if they're going to use something like a strap, I mean, I had to pay $200 for this strap.
Yeah.
Right. That's a number, right? Again, even if it's a nominal number, like 50 or $60, it's still something that I have to invest in the watch, right? That I wasn't intending when I purchased it. Again, I think these are the important things. Hopefully our pain is your gain, right? Anyone watching this who intends to buy, you know, on the secondary market or from auction houses, you know, lessons that we've shared, which, you know, haven't been the smoothest.
I think that's a wrap. What do you think?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll
All
say
right. Well,
bye-bye.
thanks everyone. And you know, we'd love to get more traction on some of these videos. So subscribe, like, give us some comments, good, bad, or indifferent. And thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Take care.
Out of time. Bye bye.